From the moment Archie Manning first laced up a pair of cleats and stepped onto a practice field as a child, the world around him seemed to quiet itself, as if football itself paused to watch what would unfold. There are players who grow into the game over time, finding their rhythm later in their youth, developing confidence slowly, steadily, predictably. Then there are the rare few, so few, in fact, that they feel almost mythical, who carry a presence long before they ever have the physical tools, the height, the strength, or the accolades. Arch was one of those. Not because he forced attention, not because he sought it, but because he was born at the intersection of legacy and possibility, where comparison is constant, where pressure is relentless, and where expectations bloom years before the athlete does. Yet, even in that environment, even in the shadow of 3 generations of football lore, Archie Manning somehow found a way to grow, not as a copy of anyone before him, but as something entirely new. His story begins long before any recruiting website tracked him. It begins long before scouts whispered his name in bleachers, long before college coaches marked their calendars hoping for a visit. It begins even before his first youth league touchdown. It begins in the spaces between family dinners at the Manning household, watching film not as homework, but as tradition, understanding football not merely as sport, but as language. His grandfather, Archie Manning, carried a certain poetic tragedy in his NFL career, a brilliant talent surrounded by insufficient support, a man whose greatness was measured not in rings but in resilience. His uncles, Peyton and Eli, became master strategists of the game, both cerebral, both polished, both possessing a gravity that shaped entire franchises. And somewhere within that lineage, between toughness and intellect, between improvisation and discipline, Arch found the raw material of his own identity. But to assume that his path was predetermined is to misunderstand him entirely. For all the stories written about him before he could even drive a car, for all the assumptions that his greatness would simply materialize out of thin air, Arch approached football with a humility that made him feel far removed from the spectacle surrounding him. He was not a child studying the fame of his family. He was a child studying the craft of quarterbacking, studying angles, studying pressure, studying timing, studying patience. He grew up seeing the game not as a vehicle towards superstardom, but as a puzzle worth solving, a discipline that demanded respect, a craft with layers that intrigued him. And because he approached football with that kind of reverence, he grew into a rare combination of natural ability and disciplined curiosity. When he arrived at Newman High School, the world was already watching. Cameras appeared at games that used to be quiet. National reporters wrote about practices that used to be anonymous. Fans streamed into stadiums just to catch a glimpse of the latest Manning prodigy. But in the swirling storm of hype, Arch demonstrated a steadiness far beyond his years. He never flinched at comparisons. He never responded to critics. He never carried himself like a young star. He carried himself like a quarterback, calm, composed, unbothered by noise. The pressure that might have crushed others seemed to strengthen him, not because he ignored it, but because he understood its inevitability and refused to let it define him. And then came the moments that started to reveal the blueprint of his future. The throws that carried both touch and conviction. The pocket escapes that shifted momentum in an instant. The decision-making that looked like it belonged to someone a decade older. Arch never played like a quarterback, trying to live up to a last name. He played like someone crafting his own. That is what made his early career feel less like an echo of the past, and more like the emergence of something distinctly modern, something that combined the Manning intellect with a new level of mobility, improvisation, and on-the-fly creativity. As his high school career unfolded, so did the recruiting frenzy. And frenzy is not an exaggeration. This was a national pursuit unlike anything the modern recruiting era had seen. Every practice rep sparked discussions. Every visit created headlines. Every interview drew millions of views. There are college coaches who recruit dozens of elite prospects every year, but when it came to Arch, they pursued him with a level of urgency that bordered on reverence. Not simply because they wanted his talent, but because they sensed that landing him was symbolic, transformative, time-altering. Yet Arch handled the process with a maturity that reinforced everything people admired about him. He didn't manipulate attention. He didn't drag the process out for spectacle. He didn't play to the circus. Instead, he treated each step with thoughtfulness and respect. When he eventually chose the University of Texas, he didn't make the decision with fanfare or public theatrics. His commitment landed like a quiet earthquake, calm on the surface, but shaking the foundations of college football beneath it. He chose Texas not because it was the easiest path, but because it was the right one. A program on the rise, a coaching staff he trusted, a place where he could grow not as a symbol, but as a quarterback. Joining the Longhorns, however, did not solve everything. In many ways, it triggered the next and perhaps most challenging phase of his journey. College football is a different world, faster, more physical, more ruthless, more demanding. And at Texas, where expectations are massive even for players without historic last names, Arch's arrival amplified everything. Yet if there was pressure, he did not bend under it. He approached college with the same patience and discipline he demonstrated throughout his youth. He accepted his role behind the established starter. He learned the system. He built trust with teammates. He didn't demand instant stardom, because he understood that instant stardom rarely leads to lasting greatness. And when he did step onto the field, when his number was called and he delivered performances that reignited the excitement surrounding him, it felt less like hype fulfilled and more like preparation revealed. Each throw carried assurance. Each movement suggested confidence. Each decision showed growth. Archie Manning wasn't just living up to expectations. He was showing the world that expectations had never dictated his development in the first place. He rose because he worked. He improved because he studied. He succeeded because he respected the long process that football demands. What makes Arch's rise compelling isn't just what he does physically. It's what he represents emotionally. He reflects a quiet version of greatness. Greatness that doesn't need theatrics. Greatness that doesn't need self-promotion. Greatness that feels inevitable only because it was built carefully, thoughtfully, consistently. He does not chase the spotlight. He lets the spotlight come to him naturally, through performance rather than persona. In an era where quarterbacks are often seen as brands before they are seen as leaders, Archie Manning stands out because he embodies the older, perhaps purer ideals of the position: composure, resilience, humility, discipline, and devotion to the craft. Yet his story is far from complete. In truth, it is still in its early chapters. His college career continues to unfold. His NFL future lies ahead. And the world waits, not with skepticism, but with genuine fascination, to see how he continues shaping an identity that is no longer trapped beneath the weight of legacy, but instead rising above it, redefining it, expanding it. If Peyton was the master of precision and Eli the master of the big moment, Arch may very well become the master of balance. A quarterback equally capable of the cerebral and the instinctive, the structured and the improvised, the traditional and the modern. But perhaps the most admirable part of his journey is that he isn't trying to be any of those things. He's simply trying to be the best version of Archie Manning, step by step, snap by snap, season by season. He understands that greatness is not a crown, it's a commitment. It's not something you wear, it's something you earn daily. And he carries that understanding with a calmness that makes him one of the most intriguing young athletes in the sport. As he continues to evolve, so does the narrative surrounding him. No longer is he merely a descendant of football royalty. No longer is he just the next Manning in line. He has begun to shift from being a figure defined by heritage to a figure defined by promise and potential. Watching him grow is watching a young man embrace challenge, responsibility, attention, pressure, all with the quiet fire of someone who believes deeply in what he can become. His throws tell part of the story. His presence tells another. But his mindset, steady, patient, grounded, tells the most important one of all. Archie Manning is a reminder that some stories are not written by legacy, or hype, or circumstance, but by the slow, meticulous accumulation of knowledge, courage, and belief. His path has been watched more closely than any young quarterback of his generation, yet he walks it with a stillness that suggests he knows something the world doesn't. Greatness is not defined by what people expect of you. It's defined by what you expect of yourself. And if the calm determination in his eyes is any indication, Arch's expectations for himself are far higher than anything the world has ever placed upon him. Thank you for watching, and if you enjoyed this long-form, reflective tribute, make sure to like, share, and subscribe so you never miss another story like this.